From the Dean Dome in Chapel Hill, this is TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm staff writer Jacob Turner, and alongside me, as always, THI publisher Andrew Jones. And Andrew, about an hour ago, maybe a little bit over an hour ago, Roy took a little bit longer to get to the press conference room tonight. Carolina defeated Elon 75-61 here in this building, and it was kind of a tale of two halves. In the first half, Carolina didn't look very good. Second half, they played a little bit better. I think Armando Bacot was probably the MVP of tonight's game, if you will. He had a really good stat line. I mean, he didn't play great in the first half. He played okay. He did some good things, but I think he was kind of a representation of this team as a whole, because in the second half, especially in the first few minutes of it, I mean, he was just a game changer, and that's as good as we've seen him play so far this season.
You could see the potential for a big second half coming in the first half because he was very active. Mm-hmm. Even the first 2 minutes of the game, he had an offensive foul without the ball. Yep. He forced a turnover right over there, about right near where we're standing. He had a couple of buckets and was kind of messing up and doing good things on both ends of the court, but he was doing stuff.
Exactly.
And he was certainly dialed in. And when you consider the fact that he was by far the most gifted big guy on the floor, that eventually that gift was going to take over, because he's skilled enough, he's athletic enough, he was determined enough tonight that his ability to grab rebounds, in which he had 14, his ability to score points, which he had 22, was going to take over, and that's why they won this game. I mean, this was not a blowout like a lot of people thought. So far, that's sort of been the theme for this club this year. For Armando to step up as he did and kind of be a consistent option, and they made a concerted effort to pound that thing inside, pound it inside. And I think the best sequence in the second half, Jacob, was the high-low from Garrison Brooks down to Armando for a dunk.
That was good.
Because that's what this team needs. And one of the things, in order for Armando to operate on the baseline, he's a really comfortable baseline big, okay? For him to be able to operate the way they need him to, Garrison has to be effective from 12 feet, 14 feet. He hit a jumper from about 14 feet in the first half, and then he had the dump down to him in the second half of that bucket. They're going to need more of that. But that's a good sign, because this club is so far away from being what they're going to be, that seeing little signs like that is definitely a positive to take from tonight.
Speaking of being so far away from what they're going to be, their head coach tonight, Roy Williams, was pretty displeased after the game, if you will. And we really haven't talked too much about Roy, at least on camera, I don't think, about kind of his attitude this season. He has not been happy after any games. Any of the 4 games, he has not been happy with his club at all. And I think tonight especially, and he said, we thought he was mad after the Gardner-Webb game, but he made a point of coming out tonight and saying, no, I'm more ticked off tonight than I was after that game. So Roy Williams...
Did he say ticked?
I think so.
Did he say pissed?
I think he might have said pissed, yeah. I had to keep it G-rated for the viewers.
That's okay. Roy said it, and we had that on here. So.
Exactly, but he's not happy. And
we can't say the other stuff.
No, we can't say it. Yeah, no, can't do that. But you could even tell especially in the first half. I remember I was sitting down here, and so I had a perfect view of him on the bench, and there was just a few times where he was sitting over there just face palming himself, leaning back in the chair. So Roy right now is not happy. I think he's a little bit concerned with this team, but still, they're sitting at 4-0 right now. But Roy, if you ask Roy, I don't think he'd tell you they're anywhere near the number 5 best team in the country.
If there was a time, like in hockey, they keep ice time, right? Yeah. And I know they keep minutes and stuff in basketball, but when I covered hockey, I always loved the ice time stat, right? If there was a statistic for the amount of time that Roy Williams leans back in his chair when everyone else is either sitting regular or even leaning forward, and I say this because when Roy does that, it means that he's beyond pissed. He's exasperated, okay? If there was a time kept for the amount of time he does that, he's probably equaled last year through the first 4 games this year. And tonight was a record.
Oh, yeah.
A near record tonight. That was not the earliest timeout he's ever called. He called one 2 minutes and 9 seconds in, but the great Sean Kress did the crack research and discovered that 2 minutes and 4 seconds into the 2013 game against Duke, that they were down 14-0. He called a timeout then. So 2 minutes and 9 seconds in against Elon after a bad performance against Gardner-Webb. Terrible sign for this team.
Yeah.
And really, and you could see the anguish on Roy's through his body language. And when I'm sitting 8 feet away from even that during the post-game press conference, and you could see it on his face. He knows he's got a big job ahead of him, and he's not thrilled with what he's seen. But he did say some positive things about Armando. He did not after the Gardner-Webb game. So we saw more of what Armando is come out tonight. In spite of the fact that we're against Elon, you still saw it. And that energy I noted early in the game, I think Roy was pleased with that. He wasn't pleased with Cole. He really wasn't pleased with anybody else. I mean, they played better in the second half, but 75 points against Elon. That's not what this program normally does, and Roy is clearly frustrated. He has to balance frustration, exasperation, anger, and patience. Got to be patience with this club, Jacob.
Oh yeah, has to be.
It has to show a lot of patience because they are a giant work in progress. Take that big W you see on the Washington Nationals cap and place it at the beginning of that statement. They're a work in progress.
They're definitely a work in progress, and things only get tougher moving forward because Carolina's heading down to the Bahamas for the next round, a couple games, and a big tournament down there against some really solid teams. And this is not an easy tournament for Carolina. And
big time.
I think this is a good test for Carolina. I think this is what they need because you look at what they played right now. Sure, they played Notre Dame in the first game, who don't really know how good they're going to be this year, and it's the first game at home. So, you never know how that game's really going to turn out. Carolina looked okay in that game, or I guess I should say Cole Anthony looked great in that game. And then you look at the three next opponents, UNCW, Gardner-Webb, and Elon tonight. Carolina really hasn't played anybody, but they're going to have to play some teams down in the Bahamas. Looking forward, AJ, what are your expectations for this team as they travel down to?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I think what we can do is we can identify where they are right now going into that tournament. They're open with Alabama next Wednesday. On Thanksgiving, they're going to play either Iowa State or Michigan, depending on what happens on Wednesday. And I wouldn't even worry about Friday right now because they got to. Alabama lost to Penn at home. Michigan and Iowa State haven't been great. Nobody really has been great in the nation this year, although I've been most impressed with Ohio State. Not that this is a national roundup or anything like that, but the point is that there are a lot of teams with the huge questions. Louisville struggled at home tonight with South Carolina upstate. Kentucky has struggled with us. I mean, the two of us could show up right now. They'd struggle because and I say that because they're finding their way. There's a lot of new parts. Calipari's just kind of figuring out what he has. Roy's doing the same thing. Duke hasn't been super sharp all the time. So this is kind of where the top of college basketball is on November 20th. This team is probably the poster child for that right now because they know what Cole has, but tonight Cole kind of struggled with that, and I think the zone that Elon played affected the heels. And when you know what Armando has, but he's going to have to eventually learn how to do it consistently, and he gets much better competition. The rest of the parts, not really sure. I think we're starting to figure out what Andrew Playtech can give them, and he's a really solid player, and I think they play a little bit better when he's on the floor a lot of the time.
I would probably agree with that.
Leakey's got a game that has to come around. Keeling has to find his game. Pierce, I think we have an idea what he might be, but they need a better version of what we've seen so far. So right now, this is not a very good basketball team. They're 4-0, and here's a little stat for you. In the shot clock era, not just the Roy Williams era, but the shot clock era, this is the only UNC team to not score at least 80 points in its first 4 games. The only other one that didn't do it in the first 3 was the 2001-2002 team that finished 8-20.
Yeah.
I covered a lot of those games, and that was a brutal basketball team. This team's better than that. They've got Cole, they've got Armando. I think they have better role players. They're going to be a lot better than that, so I'm not comparing them to them. But as a point of reference, that's where this team is as far as how it's struggling right now. So they have a lot of work to do. Next week could be ugly for this team, but I agree with you. I think it'll be good for them to play against those kind of teams. And I did ask Garrison Brooks after the game tonight. Carolina flies down to the Bahamas on Sunday, and they get Monday off, and then they go to work on Tuesday. So I said, how much does this team need that day off? How much they need just have fun? Just kind of forget basketball for a while, lose yourselves away from that, kind of remember how much fun you guys have had together just as a group of friends. And he said they do. Of course, he said he needs to get vitamin D, which is sun and everything else, because Garrison's personality is also starting to come out, which is cool.
He's a good interview.
But they do need that. And I think it'll be good for them to find out exactly where they are. Maybe the step up in competition elevates their competition, their focus and everything, or their how they perform, and their focus, which certainly Roy would like to see. Because if you see him leaning back in that chair a lot in the Bahamas, that's not a good sign. It means the Tar Heels are going to struggle to win a couple games there.
Yeah, the Heels might not have been super focused tonight, AJ, but I think we were pretty focused during that game. So the TarHeelIllustrated.com, as always, right? You got to stay locked in during the games. You can't get sidetracked.
If I made it after the day after Pittsburgh with that travel fiasco,
then
I'm good to go. I've been battle tested already.
Yeah, yes, you have. Yes, you have. For TarHeelIllustrated.com, I've been Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, like this video, share it if you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys next time.